the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. My name is Brian Wallace, and I am the MS Michigan Man 64. The MS Michigan Man 64 podcast is about chronic disease awareness. I have had multiple sclerosis for the last 27 years. It's an invisible chronic disease that I've been battling for half of my life. I want to share with you what it is like living with the chronic disease from my experiences and the experiences of other chronic disease warriors. We can fight to have a voice to those that want to listen. Together, we can motivate and educate. Hi, and welcome to the MS Michigan Man 64 podcast. Today, I am sitting down with an MSer up north from me. He's in Saskatchewan, Canada. And Shaun's a really, really cool dude. I met him online. I joined his Facebook group. He's actually the administrator for a really cool multiple sclerosis Facebook group. And the name of it is Multiple Sclerosis Resource and Education. I joined that group, and I was moving around in the group and really liking what I saw, and I got a lot of interest in it. And then Shaun reached out to me, and he said he wanted to come on and talk about it. And I said, yeah, absolutely. I want to hear about your journey with your multiple sclerosis diagnosis. So please welcome to the podcast, Shaun. How you doing today, Shaun?
Doing great, Brian. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's an honor to be here.
I am privileged to have you on, buddy, because I love meeting people all over the world. You know, this isn't a United States problem. This isn't a UK problem. It's not a Canada problem. We're all in this together. And I love hearing the stories of how people fight this disease. And I know you're really kicking MS's ass, and I want to hear your story so other people can be helped with this disease, just to understand it a little bit better. And I love talking to people about their journey. So what I want to ask, Shaun, is take us through, what happened. How old were you when you got diagnosed? What kind of symptoms were you having? And, what was going through your head when you were going through your diagnosis?
Absolutely. I have no MS history in my family at all. The day I get diagnosed with MS, I have only ever heard the term, but I know nothing about it. So June 2019, I am going through a divorce. I had my business of 30 years collapse from, related to the divorce. I am finding myself, I'm going to be a single dad. And so my world was coming down like a house of cards, and my health, I started losing feeling in parts of my body during that time. And very concerned about that. I would end up going to 4 doctors, 2 chiros, and a physio, trying to get some answers, and none of them knew what I had. I would keep going and my body would continue to lose feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Until at one point I would have no feeling at all from my neck down.
Holy shit.
And I also, because I'm also self-employed.
Yeah.
So I had no benefits. I had no backup.
Wow.
And I still had to be a dad, and I had to go work.
Yeah.
And I would continue to work, even though I couldn't feel the ends of my arms. I couldn't, and I was having other troubles as well.
Yeah.
So I was very, 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 very concerned.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So when you're going through all this, and you can't feel, from your neck down, are you going to doctors to try to get answers? Or what were you thinking? I mean, I know when I got diagnosed when I was 27 years old, I was having vision problems. I was tripping. It scared the shit out of me. I was really scared that something wasn't going on. Something wasn't right with my body. And I had just got done playing football and all that. And I'm like, what are you thinking? And are you going to doctors? And how are you trying to get this thing figured out?
Absolutely. I was terrified because I was having this radical life change with the ending of my marriage.
Mm-hmm.
and then also the ending of my own particular employment as well.
Right.
I had
Yeah.
I had ran businesses for 30 years, and they were just all of a sudden gone. So, and then I would go to doctor after doctor, and they couldn't figure it out because I had at one point, this is the craziest part of the story. I go to my last GP, and he does a test on me where I'm laying on this table, and I'm talking to him with my shirt off, and he's doing something on my chest, which I don't even know what it is. I'm talking to him, business as usual, and he goes, okay, well, yeah, stand up, and I look down at my chest, and there's four blood red marks where he's dragged a pin down my chest, four lines going from left to right, and they're all bleeding, and I couldn't feel it at all.
Oh my God.
And he said, I don't know what's wrong with you. And so
Are they running
I went,
MRIs? Are they running any kind of like scans on you at all?
not yet. So what would happen next is I would go to my local emergency, and I just went there, prepared to stay there all day. I would see a doctor, and I was there all day. I would see a doctor, and he would just do these preliminary tests on me, which I now realize are tests for MS. 3 days later, I would be in an MRI machine, and I would get diagnosed MS.
Wow.
And
You
and
know,
all the
oh, I'm
uh,
sorry. Go ahead. I'm sorry. What I was going to ask you is, when you found out that was MS, you were going through a divorce, and I know how stressful that is. I've been through a divorce. I was 15 years into my MS journey when I had a divorce, and I know that stress is just a killer for me with MS. And even when I got diagnosed too, it was stress related. It wasn't a bad stress, but it was the stress of getting married. I was engaged, and I just, the stress of that divorce is probably what triggered it, is what I'm getting to. And that's what it sounds like to me. And I hear that so much when I talk to people, when they're telling me their diagnosis is that it came during some kind of trauma or some kind of stress. And it's just really interesting that you pretty much fell right in line with that.
believe that to be true. Um, Certainly from the group as well as from my own experience, I'm a strong believer that stress is over time is what destroys uh, our systems.
Mm-hmm.
As you probably know, stress creates two things: adrenaline and cortisol.
Mm-hmm.
And adrenaline and cortisol together are kind of like they're great if they need to sort of run away from a situation
Mm-hmm.
and you need to see the superpower system. But when adrenaline and cortisol are stuck into a position where they're always on, they create a toxicity in our bodies. And adrenaline and cortisol consume vitamin D, and vitamin D then leaves your defense system completely vulnerable.
Yeah.
And then it starts to become a toxin to you, and it destroys your health.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happens to me.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
it's interesting to remark where I live is in the MS capital of the world.
Yeah. That's what I
The
was just,
highest rates of MS
yeah,
is here where I am.
that's what I was just going to get into, Shaun, because you were the one that was telling me that when we first met, and I was just like, no, I did not know that. And then we got into the
Yeah.
discussion why, and you were telling me that how much sunlight you guys get there, and that's it makes all sense because you guys aren't getting vitamin D from the sun, and it was just kind of like explain how you explained it to me, because I'm sure there's other people. If one person doesn't know something, there's a lot of other people that don't understand that either. So kind of explain to me
Sure.
what you were telling me about where you live and it being the capital up there.
Yep. Anywhere, any sort of place where you get further away from the equator and more inland, uh, the higher the rates of MS. Any place that is 365 sun, the lower the rate of MS. But then you add to that is stressful situations or anybody who has had Epstein-Barr in their history.
Mm-hmm.
Epstein-Barr, if some people know, some people don't, is what also called mononucleosis.
Mm-hmm.
But also, and it stems from Epstein-Barr. So not everybody who has MS or has had Epstein-Barr will have MS. But when you start putting all these other factors together, you start to create a great climate for it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the number one killer of health is stress. I am utterly convinced of that
I am too.
because it doesn't just give you MS, but it erodes and makes so many other poor choices as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because we will choose all sorts of things to alleviate stress that are not necessarily helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Drugs, alcohol, and the list goes on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All those things you rule out.
Yep, absolutely, Shaun. I agree with you 100%, man. Stress is my killer. And I try to tell people all the time, I'm like, it is crazy. It adds, and then, when you look at, just getting back to the Saskatchewan thing, and that conversation was so interesting to me because it made so much sense. And I've also heard, like, where I'm from in the Midwest, you got Michigan, and we have a lot of diagnoses of MS in our area too, and it's just interesting to talk about where you're at in the world and the correlation between the minerals, the natural minerals that you get, that your body needs to fight off autoimmune diseases, and it's just a really really interesting conversation that we've had about our path. So let me ask you this, Shaun. When you got this diagnosis, did they like right away get you on a DMT? What was your journey with how you were going to attack this disease once you did figure out what was going on? You got your diagnosis, and now okay, let's get on a treatment path.
Yeah, so exactly. So after I get through my MRI and the lady comes out, nice enough lady, says, unfortunately, I have to tell you that you have MS, multiple sclerosis, and unfortunately, there is no known cure.
All right.
And what we'll do, we'll set you up with a neurologist, and we'll discuss whatever next. So 2 days, 3 days later, I was in a neurologist's office. Basically, all the neurologist tells me exactly what she says. This is MS, no cure, and here is a list of drugs that you can take. So, and I didn't know what to choose, and it was basically my mom was there and my girlfriend at the time, and that was my people I conferred with what to pick.
Mm-hmm.
So I would pick one, and I would be on it for 2 to 3 months, and then I would quit. But I was on it for a short time, and I picked the one that had the best promise. And the one that had the best promise only gave me 50-50 chance of it doing anything for me in 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought about that, I thought, well, 50-50 chance after 20 years isn't great odds.
Right. Yeah.
So about 3 months later, I would go off the DMT because I thought in 20 years, whatever side effect of the drugs that I'm taking, I will definitely get.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever downsides I'm going to get, and there may be no upsides.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I was already, so what I would do next is I would dive into research to understand everything about the illness.
Mm-hmm.
And I went down the rabbit trail of anything. Before I was diagnosed, I had massive convictions about what good health was and what it wasn't. And they were not necessarily based on fact. They were just based on my own ideas.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was anti this, anti that, and you should never do this. But I never had to really put any of that to test.
Yeah.
Once I got diagnosed with MS and my body shut down, I basically took my proverbial kitchen table, swept it clean, and said, everything's an option now.
Right. Yeah.
Everything.
Absolutely.
So anything that I would go onto the internet, and I would discover people that had gotten on top of MS and who had beaten it, and they did it without DMTs.
Yeah.
Now, they weren't common.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't a bunch of them, but there were.
Yeah.
One guy, the first guy I come across is a guy named Bob Cafaro, and he's a cellist with I think the New York Symphony.
Okay.
Got a great TED Talk. Now, I encourage anybody who is feeling like there's no hope to look up Bob Cafaro on YouTube.
Yeah.
You'll be a ray of sunshine. He had massive MS, and he got on top of it without DMTs.
Wow.
And it'll bring tears to your story to listen to his TED Talk.
Shaun.
So anyway,
go ahead.
So that would give me the first ray of hope that it was, that was, maybe possible.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would go down every rabbit trail, no matter what it was. And if it looked like it had any promise, I would start it immediately.
Right.
Just start it.
Yeah.
From supplements to, I went vegetarian at the first, and then I went this and I went that. And anything that moved it, I found anything that moved the needle even a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
I would continue or I would adjust.
Yep.
Anything that made me feel worse, obviously I would stop. And about 6 months, roughly, maybe 7 months. It's hard to tell the timeline because everything is so fuzzy.
Right. Right.
I would recover from my worst day to about 70%.
Okay.
That's with diet and lifestyle.
That is an unbelievable improvement, Shaun. And that's what I try to tell people is that when you get this diagnosis, at least for me, in my opinion, there's no straight path on this journey. Everybody attacks this disease differently. And I've heard so many great success stories just in the short time I've been doing this podcast and the different ways that people attack this disease. And I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. I just think you got to figure it out on your own. And I try to tell people, once you get that diagnosis, you got to get an attitude right off the bat. And the sooner you get that attitude, like, you know what, I'm going to beat this one way or another. I'm going to figure this shit out. It might not be the traditional way. I mean, there's people that go and get that HSCT treatment, the stem cell therapy, because they're searching for answers. I mean, I understand that it costs a lot of money, but I mean, that's the way we all are. We just want to feel better. If it's a 1% improvement on the next day, that's an improvement. That's an accomplishment. That's what we're searching for in any way we can, whether it's with a DMT naturally, through exercise, it doesn't matter. You got to figure it out how your body responds to it and go after it as hard as you can.
Absolutely. I mean, I tell people on my group all the time, it says, no matter what happens, you never give up your right to be spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
You got to be spiteful against us, no matter what. In spite of this, I'll keep going. In spite of that, in spite of what they say, in spite of what my neurologist says, in spite of what I'm feeling, I will win. I will get on top of it. I will succeed or whatever.
Yeah.
You gotta have it in you to beat it. And because of the history of my life, I have a lot of childhood trauma as well. And I've had to overcome many mountains as well. And this would be by far the biggest one I would ever have to get over.
Mm-hmm.
But it was all those other mountains that I was able to get over that prepared me for this one.
Mm-hmm.
And I am happy to say I'm functional. I'm relatively symptom-free now, and I'm living great, and I'm doing it all without meds.
That's just
So what would happen next?
It's just such an awesome story, Shaun. And that's the thing that really attracted me to you when I joined your group is just your group is just so open. I mean, you're not there for like the sales pitch stuff. You don't want anybody selling anything, which I commend that. I mean, there's a lot of stupid shit out there that people are just trying to make money off of our chronic disease, and you're totally against that. And I love that about your group. And you just want people to tell their stories. You know what? This is how we're beating this disease. Share the ideas. And I know that we've had this conversation about the Facebook groups, and that's why you started this page is because, you were trying to tell your story of how you're kicking the shit out of the MS and you were getting kicked out of MS groups because of, the corporate logos inside the MS groups, which I ran into, and I had no knowledge of Facebook up until about 9 months ago. And I'm sitting in some Facebook groups just throwing my podcast out just to try to help people. Hey, 27 years with this disease. You want to know how I did it attitude-wise? And I got people on Facebook saying, they kicked me out. They're saying I'm trying to self-promote. I'm like, oh, no, I don't give a shit what I'm saying. I'm not trying to promote myself. I don't want to pat on the back. I'm just trying to tell people how to fight this disease and motivate them not to give up. And you always got to search for improvement. I was telling you the story a little while ago. Yesterday, I go to my chiropractor and I went and I usually use a rollator, and I decided, you know what, I'm using my cane today. I'm gonna do this, and that was a huge win for me. I was excited about it. And that's an improvement because last week I had to use my rollator, and we take anything positive with this disease because that's all we're searching for is improvement.
Absolutely. I remember you telling me about that when we were celebrating together. It's the like only an MS person realizes if you get one ability improved, it's a big deal because it just means maybe I'm going to get another one tomorrow, and maybe I'm going to come back to the person I once was, and that's exactly what kind of motivated my group because I'd done so much to get so far, and I beat the odds.
Yeah,
I really did, and I can't take all the credit to myself, but I can take the credit that I did the work or whatever it took to get to where I am.
yeah.
Now, there's lots of different reasons why I'm where I'm at, and there's lots of different chapters of where I'm at.
Hmm.
But what got me here was sheer tenacity of just like, I'm not going to take no for an answer. No, even if no is the only answer, I'm still not going to accept it.
Yep, absolutely,
So
brother.
what would,
I'm wired the same way. I mean, you know what? Back when I was playing ball at Michigan, that's the way you're programmed. I mean, you're programmed by the coaches. You know, you're going up against Ohio State, you're going up against Notre Dame, you're going to run into roadblocks, and you need to practice, and you need to, you got to strive for perfection, and work your ass off to try to get that win. And when you run into the roadblock out on the field, you got to figure it out, and you got to and do it on the fly. You got to do it quick, and
absolutely,
you got to make good decisions. And that's kind of the way I attacked this MS. I'm like, all right, game on. This is a game to me.
exactly,
MS wins sometimes. They win a quarter, but I'm going to win at the end.
that's right.
It's never going to stop me, and that's what I try to motivate people. I'm like, I played at Michigan, and I have MS now, but I'm not letting MS define me. It can't take away the fact that I played in Michigan. I know a lot of people, they feel bad because they can't do things that they used to be able to do. You know what? You did it though. And MS is never going to take that from you. It's never going to take the fact that I played at Michigan and I went to 3 Rose Bowls and a Gator Bowl and won 4 Big Ten championships. I don't care how bad I get. I'm still going to have that on my resume. And everything that I accomplished after MS, I worked for 26 years after MS. I pat myself on the back every day for doing
For
that.
sure.
You got to take every win you can get with this disease. Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't until like I with my diet and lifestyle after my diagnosis and my relentless uh, research, I would discover the benefits of that were in other therapies that were fixing other things. Now we hear a lot about stem cell. I would watch the podcast with Mel Gibson on Joe Rogan,
Mhm.
and where he took his dad to get um, treated and different things. And then, but then what also something happened in that time is one of my clients from my former business was talking about a lady who was in our hometown where we grew up together, which is 2 hours from where I am right now.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and the lady that lived down the street from her, and she didn't know well, but she said, yeah, she would she was in a wheelchair. I believe it's from with MS, but the other day, I just saw her walking her dog as she crossed my driveway, and she's been doing it ever since. And I don't know what's, all of a sudden something changed.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what? I said, well, you got to put me in contact with her. And then I would eventually get in contact. And this is now 2021.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get in contact with her and find out that she did a stem cell treatment in India, where after over 20 years of primary progressive MS,
Mm-hmm.
she would go to India in a wheelchair and get treated there. And she'd be there for 13 days and would leave her wheelchair in India and come back and has been MS free since now. And this is over 10 years ago.
That is
I said, okay,
that is just unbelievable, Shaun. I when you told me that story, I was like, what? And then you ended up talking to her, right?
yeah. So I would hunt her out. And I said, okay, you got to put me in contact with her. So this mutual friend would find the number and everything else and put us in contact. And then I had said, and I said, I would love to hear your story and I would love to record it because I do, I'm a bit of a filmmaker kind of guy.
Yeah.
So I would go and venture down back to Tisdale, Saskatchewan, and I would go find her out and
Hmm.
I would record it and get her to tell me her story.
Yeah.
And she was in a wheelchair, primary progressive. Don't know what I don't know if you know what an EDS scale is, but
Yeah.
EDS scale
Yeah.
is a scale from 1 to 10,
Hmm.
where what level of ability slash disability you have. She was a 6.5 on the EDS.
Wow. I think I'm pretty close to that actually. I'm like a 5 point something, 5.8. I think the last one I saw. Wow. Oh, and she's symptom free now.
She's symptom free today,
That's
and she has the MRIs to prove it. It's not it's not placebo. I mean, it can't be placebo if you're in a chair or you're not. It's not
yeah.
like that, of course. But so she's got the MRIs to prove it.
That's amazing.
To the point now where sorry you're up. So that her neurologist says, well, maybe you didn't have MS.
Oh my
The
God.
same guy who diagnosed it, same guy who diagnoses her now wants to recant.
Oh my God. So they're telling her, yeah, you had MS, and maybe you didn't have that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Then let me. So you actually went over there after you talked to her. You actually, you did your research and you took the chance because we are all searching for relief and improvement. So talk about that journey, like how you found the guy. You talked to him, and you went over there, and it's just an awesome story, dude.
Sure. So I thought, wow, that's incredible. So I would reach out to him, this guy in India. He runs a clinic there. So it's not just some guy in a shack, but
Man,
he runs a clinic out there. And he, he, it's during COVID. So it was very difficult to reach him.
yeah.
So I thought he was ghosting me. So I thought, I don't know,
Hmm.
whatever. And then he would eventually get back to me and we would have conversations. And the more he talked to me, the more it made sense of what he was talking about. Now, if it wasn't for all the research I'd already done and the fact that I had met Linda and that she's obviously doing well,
Hmm.
if I hadn't met that and all the research I'd done, so the things he's talking about all making sense. And so he's talking about physio. He's talking about two particular MS, multi, so two stem cell treatments that both already know move the needle on MS. He talks about the fact that he does them both in one treatment or in one stint,
Yeah.
and the more it makes sense. And uh, I'm also, well, I don't know if it matters or not, but I'm unvaxxed. So I decided to figure out how to get to India during COVID, and that's a story in itself. But I ended up,
I can only imagine unvaxxed going over to India. Wow, that's crazy.
yeah. So I fly through many countries to get to India
Yeah.
unvaxxed. Excuse me. Anyway, I'm also suffering with tremendous amounts of things. By the time I'm 70% recovered from my worst day, but the things I struggle with the most are extreme fatigue
Hmm.
and competency.
Hmm.
So I have tremendous trouble holding a thought. I would, like, if you and I were having a conversation, in the middle of the conversation, I would forget what we are talking about.
Yeah.
And I have to kind of listen now I realize, okay, I just forgot what we were talking about.
Hmm.
And I now have to listen to cues to kind of like try to pick up the conversation, or I would just change the subject because
Yeah.
I lost it.
Yeah. I get it.
So I'm navigating. I would go to India by myself, internationally, and travel 23 hours, 24 hours,
Hmm.
and then end up in Mumbai, India.
Wow.
And 13, then I would be going to undergo this treatment, which lasts 13 days,
Hmm.
including physio twice a day, two different stem cell treatments that involve stem cell. I could go into details, but it'd make a longer podcast. And over those 13 days, by the end of the second treatment, that the third day after the second treatment, I was going across. Me and the team in India we're on a train going across Mumbai, and we did a day trip where I was able to walk and keep up with them all day in India heat,
Wow.
and we did a full 8 hour day traveling around India by train, and it was awesome. And I'm a professional photographer. I carried my camera bag.
Hmm.
It was business as I was back,
And
and
the cognitive was better too.
it was all back.
Wow.
Uh, it 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 wasn't. It would get better as the months would go on, to be honest.
Hmm.
But I was physically doing well. By the end of that day, I was exhausted, but I should have been.
Yeah.
You mean,
You should have been.
it
Yeah,
was
absolutely. That's just
India heat.
that's incredible, Shaun. I'm just like
Yeah.
so, and then the thing that one of my first things with when we had our first conversation, I said to you, so you went over to India to get the HSCT treatment, and you said, oh
So
no, this is completely different. So explain the difference in treatment that you went to get this stem cell treatment.
thank you so much for mentioning that, Brian. That's a solid point
Yeah,
that I really want to make clear.
yeah,
It is not HSCT. Now, I had heard of HSCT by this point already when I was still in Canada, and a friend of my son's girlfriend was also diagnosed with MS, and we were considering what route to take. She would eventually go HSCT, and I would go this route. But HSCT includes chemotherapy, and I just never saw anything good come from chemotherapy,
yeah,
and it was very unattractive to me.
yeah,
And she would end up having to financially raise $80,000
yeah,
to go and get HSCT, somewhere down south. I don't even know where it was, but she had to raise a lot of money.
yeah,
Now, my treatment is vastly, vastly less than half of that.
yeah.
And so and it incorporated no chemotherapy.
Right.
And the clinic that was in India was very, very against the chemotherapy portion. So they were on the same page there. And they're also the clinic in India is very much on a curative model, not a medicative model.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to say, and they're quick to say that we can't guarantee that we will cure you.
Yeah.
But what they can say is certain things. But they want to be a one and done, not 2 years come back, 3 years come back,
Yeah.
etc. So they want to be a one and done clinic.
Wow. That is just such an interesting. I have never heard that. 27 years doing this disease, I've never heard of this treatment. So if it's not HSCT, what is this treatment called? This stem cell therapy called?
I don't know that he really has a name to cover the whole thing, but what it basically involves is two. I'll try and do it justice. So over 13 days, you do physio twice a day, and the physio people there are really good at it. Like, I'm not a big sports guy, I never have been, so I don't have a lot of experience with physio.
Mm-hmm.
But every time I hear about people that get this physio that's from India, they're just really good at it. So a very good physio twice a day, and then they do the first procedure is known as CCSVI. Now it became popular a few years ago, and what CCSVI is the opening up of the plumbing in the neck of an MS person.
Hmm.
Lots of times people with MS have collapsed blood flow or blood flow issues, which help them get MS or leads to helps their MS condition. So what they do, not using stents, is they open up the blood flow, and they do it in such a way, and it's kind of proprietary, I gather. I don't That's above my pay grade to explain all this, but
Yeah.
they they do something where they enable it to stay open, but they don't use stents. So they make sure that the plumbing is good, the blood flow is good.
It's
And
just
then
it's just so interesting to me. I would love to know why this is so like unheard of. Why if this is helping people, why isn't this being talked about more?
I I can't explain that either,
Yeah,
honestly.
I know you can't explain it. It's just mind boggling to me. Because I mean, I don't know. I don't even know the count on the world count, but I think it's like 2.5 million, just in the United States that have this
Yeah,
disease. So you got how many people in the world searching for answers, and you got a treatment that is having this kind of effect. You got a lady that had it for 20 some or 30 years, and she's primary progressive, and now she's symptom free. Why isn't this should be like world news that this is a possible
absolutely.
path for us. I don't understand why it's like we don't know about this stuff, and that's why I started doing this podcast. Is I got my way. I've been through 27 years of this. I got my way. I didn't know that there were so many other kick-ass badasses out there that figured it out a completely different way. And I just like hearing about them and the successes that people have with this disease. It's uplifting that there are answers. You got to find them and you got to figure it out. And I just love the fact that you wanted to talk about this, and I love
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
hear these stories. I just wish that more people talked about these success stories more, because we need to know this. I mean, I've been doing this 27 years, and I want to know how people are beating this because it might help me, and I want to know because I'm tired of this disease.
Absolutely.
I'm tired of this disease. 1997, I'm being told, oh, yeah, there's going to be a cure in 10 years. And it's 27 years
Yeah,
later, and we're not there. And it's frustrating to me, especially knowing how much money is getting poured into supposedly all the research. And they got the MS Society, and I'm thinking to myself, well, all this money is going into this research and drugs, and where is the improvement? And we're just searching for answers, and I just love the fact that I'm hearing how people are doing it, and it's not the traditional way. There's more ways out there to fight this disease. We just got to figure it out, and let's help each other.
absolutely. And exactly what I would just finish the story with is so there's two treatments, and then the second one is something where they they're able to inject stem cells right into the spine,
Hmm.
and that's where the radical change comes. But and it's all, I don't know, it's all their thing. Why is it more well known? I can't explain that.
Yeah,
I
I know it's a debating topic. I just threw it out there, and I know I interrupted you, and
sure
I didn't mean to
that's
do
fine.
that, but it just fires me up. I mean, I've been doing this 20.
Absolutely,
It really. I mean, I understand the fact I got MS. I can't cry about it. I'm not asking for pity, but we're just all in the same boat. Whether you've had it for
sure,
a 1 year or 40 years, I don't care how long you've had it. All we've ever wanted is to feel normal, and we've been searching for a
absolutely,
long time, and we want normal lives. We're sick and tired.
absolutely,
We're sick and tired of our bodies feeling the way they do. We're sick and tired of the fatigue. We're sick and tired of society treating us the way they do because we have a disease. We're
absolutely.
tired. We're tired. We're looking for answers.
We want to join the land of the living again, and not the land of the slowly dying.
Yeah.
And that's the difference.
Yep.
Every time I've ever gone to my neurologist, they reiterate the same thing. These are the DMTs we recommend, and with any hope, maybe the next 4 to 5 years we have a cure every time.
Yeah.
And I look at them and I can see the emptiness in their words and the lack of motivation in there. That's how I see it.
Yeah.
Like you don't like you care, but you don't care.
Yeah.
There's a moment you cure me. There's a moment you have to go get a job.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see it.
Yeah.
I don't think they're evil people. I don't.
Yeah.
But they just don't see the motivation. You're the one making bank off of this.
Oh yeah.
I'm the one who is the bank.
Yep. And I know we had that conversation too, Shaun, and we like, and I think I said this to you a couple of times. We're I don't even know how many miles we are apart, but we are like spot on with the way we think. Just like
Absolutely.
there's got to be other answers out there on why. Like that lady that is symptom free. Why isn't she world news, and why aren't isn't she being studied as to how she is symptom free now? And why aren't you being studied that this treatment is working for people? And that's the part that's frustrating to me, is that I'm 27 years in, and I don't even know about this treatment. Why isn't this information out there?
The great part of that story with Linda, see, is Linda did go public. And in fact, she was national news for a time.
Hmm.
But when she started to share her story here in Canada, and I would probably not do the story justice that Linda should tell it herself. But what I do know is that she went public. She went national news, and she was on, I don't even know what publication. Let's say like some network
Yeah.
or some
Yeah.
TV show,
Yeah.
whatever, like a big one.
Well, yeah.
Anyway,
Whichever one.
they kind of hijacked her on the show. They broadsided her on the show, and she would actually end up walking off the set in tears about how she was treated. She basically was told that she was not telling the truth or something like that, but she was basically hijacked on the show. And
That's just unbelievable. Yeah, when you were telling me that, my jaw was just dropped, and I was like, "You got to be kidding me!" That's aggravating to me. But I know another really cool conversation that we had, and it was a stat that I didn't even know, and I've been doing this 27 years, but I know that like when I first got diagnosed, everybody's like, okay, get involved with the MS Society, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, all right. And everybody's doing these fundraisers and all that. And I think it's great. I mean, you need research, you got to research for meds and all that. But then I'm like thinking to myself, well, why? You got the MS Society, which I'm not saying it's a bad organization, but what is it doing for me? It's not doing anything for me right now. And I kind of got that attitude, like, to me, it's a money grab. People are making money off of my disease. And then you threw this stat at me, which I want you to talk about, because I was blown away. I didn't know this stat.
Yeah, I had the good fortune. There's other great groups that are doing a lot for things for MS, and I was in touch with Matt Emery out of Calgary with MS Hope, who I've had the good fortune of actually I've met with in person, and he's become somewhat of a friend. I was in contact with him, and then he did a documentary called Living Proof, and I would end up watching that, and off of that show, he would enlighten me to the fact that the MS Society only gives 17% of their fundraising goes to research. So that leaves an enormous amount of money.
Yeah.
To what?
Yeah. To what?
To what is that?
Yeah.
Where does all that go? And if you're not moving the needle, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Because all these things, whether it's our illness like, as multiple sclerosis or cancer to whatever, all this fundraising that goes on, like where's the report card?
Yep.
So what? Like how are you guys doing?
Yeah.
You're getting all the money, but now we as your donor base, we deserve to go. Okay, how's it going?
Yeah.
Like if we were doing like any of us, if we all have, if we were building a house, we would have inspectors at different stages of the game to make sure that the house is being built right.
Mm-hmm.
And that's standard. But there's no checkup for these guys.
Yeah.
There's no accountability for these guys.
Yeah.
And
I know. I mean, we had that conversation, and I agree with you. And again, I'm not going to sit here and say there doesn't need to be research, because there does. You got to research medications to improve everybody's health. It's just the number that you gave me, 17%. I'm just like, wow, that is just like I knew that that there was a lot of money being made, but when you said that only was 17% actually going to research, I was just like, Jesus, that's crazy. People need to hear that.
Absolutely. Because that's over 80% of all the money raised by MS Society goes where?
Yeah, where?
That's a lot of money to raise 17% to research.
Yeah.
I don't know how they run their show. I'm not there. I'm not going to say that they're. I'm not saying that they're bad or whatever, but that's still like
It's
I don't get it.
it's an
Like,
yeah, it's just an interesting stat, you know. And
absolutely.
I'm not whining, and I'm not complaining, you know, to a certain extent that I have the MS. I mean, it is what it is. I have MS, but I mean, when you hear the numbers like that, it's just it makes my mind like just spin. It's like that's a lot
Absolutely.
of freaking money, and if you really want to get the cure, it should be more than 17%,
Yes.
in my opinion. It should be way more than
Right.
17%. With all the billions of dollars that is raised for this,
Absolutely.
yeah,
It
yeah,
just reeks of ill motivation to me. Like I just don't see a motivation there.
yeah,
I don't. And now I'm not judging them,
yeah.
but from me sitting from where I'm looking at,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't sound like ill. It does. Like, there's just a lot of money in MS, and like we can do a lot with like Elon Musk can fly around the globe, and lots of things are getting done in the world
Mm-hmm.
that don't seem this hard.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah. We had that conversation too, where you see Elon Musk, you know, he's sending a rocket up to the moon and it's coming back, and they got the
sure,
technology to catch it out of the air. I'm like, that's
right,
unbelievable. I mean, if we have scientists that can figure this out, why can't we figure this? Why can't we
absolutely,
figure a disease that is like just destroying people? Why can't we figure something
absolutely,
out? You know,
absolutely. Like
it's
see,
yeah. Go ahead.
so AI right now is getting to the point where it's so smart it actually can make new compounds that never existed
Mm-hmm.
with its own brain or whatever. By just using that AI,
Yep.
will make entirely new compounds that for particular purposes
Mm.
that never existed
Yep.
by itself.
I know, you know,
And we can
I did an episode with my stepdaughter, Madeline, and she is going to pharmacy school right now. She's got a couple of years left, and we had a great conversation about that fact. That she thinks that modern medicine is going to have a really big shift in the next few years with AI. Because she said the technology, the success that they're seeing in medicine that she's learning in pharmacy school is that AI is going to be the future. And it was really interesting to hear a young, you know, a lady that's 25 years old and going through school of what they're being taught. And yeah, it's really interesting, the conversation about the AI.
for sure. But so long as there's the only thing that's going to be, but I will say to anybody who's trying to on a path to healing is you have to now be your own doctor in or your own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
You got to own your health.
Yep.
You cannot leave it solely blindly in the hands of somebody else
Yep.
because you, as the person who is ill, you have 100% of everything to lose, and the other people have 100% of everything to gain
Yep.
from your illness.
Yep. Amen, brother.
So you
That's,
got to be as smart as them,
yep. Absolutely,
and
brother.
you got to be on your own side, and
Yeah.
you got to be in it to win it.
Yep.
And you cannot apologize.
Yep.
You cannot compromise.
Yep.
You cannot take no for an answer.
Yep. I
If
agree
you
with
come
you.
a good,
Yeah.
if you come up against a doctor or somebody who just says, I can't help you, that doesn't mean there is no help.
Yep.
That just means they can't.
Yep. Absolutely,
So
brother.
move on.
I say that I have that conversation with so many people on this podcast, is that, you know what, this is your journey. Control it,
Absolutely.
and always find, you know, you're always in searching. I'm 27 years into this. I'm always searching for an answer. I will never stop. That's the way I'm wired. You know, I'm going to go to my grave looking for improvement and for answers to this disease, no matter
Absolutely.
what. And, you know, that's why I just appreciated meeting you and having this conversation with you, because, you know, it doesn't matter where we are. It doesn't matter what color we are. We can be white, black,
Absolutely.
Asian, Puerto Rican. You know, it does not matter. This disease doesn't give a shit. We need to
That's
come
right.
together and, you know, just keep on sharing our stories of success. And, you know, we can figure this out, because I always say MSers figure shit out. Um, we got to take care of ourselves because, we got to keep fighting. It's a nonstop battle. And I love talking to you, Shaun. I would have you on this.
Awesome.
I will have you on, as much as you want to come on and talk about anything.
Anytime. Anytime.
You are another guy that I'm so privileged to have met, and I thank MS for that. I'm meeting all these people all over the world
For
that,
sure.
and it's just an awesome community, and we are all in this together, searching for answers. And I appreciate you, and I want to give you one more shot to say anything you want to anybody that's out there listening. Say anything you want about your podcast, or not your podcast, your Facebook page. It's just an awesome conversation, man. I really, really thank you for coming on and sharing your journey.
Yeah, I guess. And you told me that you were going to say this toward the end, and I've been thinking about what I would say. And I would just, with my group, I hear so many stories of, of all kinds, and I see people that are really desperate for answers. What I would tell you, anybody who's listening to this, and you just don't know if you're going to make it, do not give up, even when everything says to. Do not give up. Do not quit. Reach out. The answers are out there. It might seem impossible, but it's not. Come and reach us through our group, Multiple Sclerosis Resource and Education on Facebook. You're welcome to contact me personally. I am easy to find on the internet. I don't hide myself. I'm open on my group. I actually use my real name.
Yep.
And I'm here to help. And just like Brian is here to help you too.
Yeah.
Do not quit.
Absolutely.
Your battle can be won.
Absolutely. I love it, brother. I love it. This is a journey. We just need to come together. I belong to Liliana's group, the MS Rebels, and I was telling her about you, and I'm an administrator with that group, and I was telling all the administrators, I'm like, man, I'm doing a podcast with a guy, another Facebook administrator. Guy's got the same mentality as Liliana over at the Rebels. This is just we just got to all come together. You got 40,000 in your group. You got 40,000 in your group. We got 8,000 in ours, 9,000. I mean, we just need to make this, let's go for 3 million people and all come together and share our stories and share our fixes and share our wins. And that's what I want. That's what I want. Everybody that is diagnosed with this stupid fucking disease to get relief. And that's all I want is answers. I want answers. I want relief. And I don't want anybody not to understand what we go through. Because this is a hell. I mean, we're living in a body. It's a body that looks normal, but it is so fucked up.
Fortunately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And go ahead, Shaun.
I was going to say a win for one of us is a win for all of us.
Yep.
When we come together.
Absolutely, man. 100%. I really appreciate meeting you, Shaun. Again, I will invite you anytime you want on. It doesn't matter what part of the world you're from. I want to hear your story. Please, sure. If you have MS and you want to get involved in a community that is really, really accepting and full of a lot of positivity, check Shaun's Facebook page out. Check out Liliana's Facebook page, The Rebels. We are here to help you, and Shaun is just an awesome dude. We're in this together, man, and we're gonna do some damage, and we're gonna figure stuff out. MSers figure shit out. We're gonna figure it out together. If you want to follow me on TikTok, I'm at MS Michigan Man 64. Also on Instagram, MS Michigan Man 64. You can also find me on my personal web page or Facebook page, Brian Wallace out of Brunswick, Ohio. Again, I want to thank Shaun for coming on. Until the next episode, this is the MS Michigan Man. I am out.